So, to get us started, I want to introduce Dennis Watkins. Last year, when we moved our company holiday party virtual, Dennis performed for us, and he truly amazed our team with his magic show. So, I'm so excited to have him here today. Dennis is a third generation magician. He's an actor and entertainer with awards and honors from the Society of American Magicians, the Desert Magic Seminar, and the International Brotherhood of Magicians. I don't know much about any of those groups, but if they hold a conference, that is where I want to be after this pandemic lifts. So please put me on your invite list, Dennis. He's critically acclaimed, has an award-winning show, The Magic Parlor, that's been running at the legendary Palmer House Hotel in Chicago for more than 10 years. And he was recently featured on Penn and Teller's TV show called Fool Us. And just as cool, Dennis has his very own unique story of change that I'd like to ask him to share today. Dennis?
Thank you, and thank you so very much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you, and I'm really happy to share what I think probably a rather unique little story of change. I run a company called the Chicago Magic Company, which sounds like much more than it is. My company basically produces my work, and prior to the pandemic, that work existed in two silos. I perform and provide magical entertainment for corporate events and organizational events all over the world. And I have been running a show called The Magic Parlor at the Palmer House Hotel in the heart of downtown Chicago for about 10 years. Between those two silos of work, my little team has executed about 400 live performances each and every year for a long, long time. And leading up to the pandemic, my work was already in a great deal of flux. I sort of made a gamble as a small business owner who had just had a new child and wanted to get off the road and spend more time at home. And I went all in on producing the show, The Magic Parlor at the Palmer House. And in doing so, I bought out my previous business partner, my co-producer, in December of 2019, meaning a great deal of my capital was tossed out onto the table, and I was getting ready to recoup all of that when, lo and behold, on March 14th, the pandemic forced me to shut down in-person performances in every area of work that I execute. At that time, of course, like I imagine most of you, we anticipated a rather short hiatus, but regardless of how short it was going to be, I had to keep working. Not only did I have a new child in my home, we had just gone all in. We made some massive investments. We bought out our partner and we needed to recoup. And so stopping just wasn't an option. I'm a third generation magician. For as long as I can remember, my work and the other magicians in my family, our work had to be live. There are a lot of magicians who work on TV, who work in multimedia areas. I have never been one of them. All of my work, 400 shows a year, is live and in the same room with the audience. But I sat down with my team and said, hey, what do we do? And the suggestion was made to jump into the world of virtual programming and live streaming. And like a fool, I said, sure, schedule a live stream. We'll do it in 2 weeks. This is not the way that you should do these things, I learned very quickly, because it's easy to live stream from Dad's basement about video games if you have a cell phone and a Facebook account. What's hard is producing a show. At the time that we started, I figured it was going to be much simpler than I wanted it to be, but I did have two goals for the team: to create an interactive experience and to create a professional grade product. And on April 15th, we launched our first virtual performance for Hewlett-Packard as a corporate event. And I have to say that we made a valiant effort at checking both of those boxes, but we didn't quite do it. Part of that was because as an artist, I didn't yet understand what needed to happen to make sure that things could feel magical across the screen. And part of it is because as a technician, I did not know everything that it would take to perform virtually. At the time, I had an iPad, a couple microphones, and some lights. Now, my studio looks a little bit different. We've executed about 500 virtual events since April of last year, and this is what is required. Let me show you. This is the studio. This is where I see the shows. As I look up here now, I see the gallery view. That's where we keep the audience, so I can keep an eye on you on a big monitor. Beneath that, we have two MacBook Pros, two laptops running the video, an iPad as one of the cameras, another Canon DSLR as a camera, another iPad, an extra monitor here so that I can see the audience, controls, extra lights just to throw some background splash, a green screen for clients who really want it. And as we all know, friends, the technology that makes this possible, which is a technology that would blow my granddad away, really exists right here, right? See, in this little black box, that's the Wi-Fi, that's the internet router, that's what makes it all really happen. And as we come back in, if you'll permit me 1 second just to get situated a little bit. There we go. And with that, we'll come right back in, right? So that's a peek at what it takes, none of which was ready when the pandemic hit. In fact, what happened at the beginning of April were sleepless nights and becoming great friends with the Best Buy touchless recovery guys, as I would go every 10 minutes for a different cable, for a different microphone. At the end of the day, the team was able to assemble something that took the work from living between us in the same space to a place where now I could work all over the world. The art wasn't ready yet. We had to correct the show. We had to change it from a show that we were doing that was an adaptation of live shows to include material that was engineered to work in this situation. And as we made those changes, that's where our learning really started. Because we figured out the technical part of it. We figured out what we had to do to make sure that we could be seen and heard. We could control the views. We could bring audience members in. We could do all kinds of fun things technically. But what we really started to learn as the pandemic went on was that the basic fundamental need for the work that we do still existed. And it might sound a little full of myself to talk about the work from a need place, but I do believe as a magician, there's a service to the work that I offer. A service that, frankly, in my mind, got a little bit lost as I was hustling to take over operation of the show, to buy out my partner, and when the pandemic hit, it was completely lost in the chaos of trying to put the show together. But as I started doing shows for companies and audiences all over the world in this medium, I discovered something really interesting, which is that we put tickets on sale and people would buy tickets and then they would send free tickets to their family all over the world and they would all meet on Zoom for this shared experience. And what I learned was that you guys, I say you guys because you're the ones I'm seeing right now, you guys, an audience, would sure like to see some magic tricks on video. But what you really want is an opportunity to spend time together safely and commune and have a communal experience. That's the basic underlying need to a show that you buy tickets to and come to see in downtown Chicago. And it's the same fundamental need here. And this change that we made to an all-new way of working turned out to allow the team to serve that need in ways that we never thought possible. There was a day in December last year where I did a show in Dubai, Singapore, the UK, and then another show in Chicago all in the same day. Audiences all over the world, something that my little bitty business, live entertainment production company could have never accomplished previously. And suddenly we can serve an audience globally with very little expense now that we figured out this nonsense. So the pivot was big, it was different, and it's changed the way I work in all capacities. In a little while I might be able to share a piece of magic with you that'll be a great illustration of that. But in the last year, I performed 0 in-person shows and 500 virtual shows. My grandfather would not have been able to work had this happened to him. His business would have been closed down. He would have been on a complete hiatus. Luckily, as a magician, I live in a world and a time where the technology is available. And at this point in time, I see a lot of magicians trying to catch up and move into the virtual space. And I'm just grateful that I did it at the beginning. My soul as an artist and a performer has been fed greatly by not only continuing to be able to work, but by finding sort of a new acquaintance, a new connection, a reconnection with the real purpose of the work. So the story of change that I have to share is one about how it happens, not why it happens. It turns out that that has stayed the same. It turns out that that need is just as potent as ever it was. But the way that I work today is in an entirely different art, one that someday I hope to be good at.
Thank you so much, Dennis. As a third generation entrepreneur myself, I understand, the pressure of taking something and reinventing it even as times change. So I'm super impressed with the story you shared. So thank you so much. And I really encourage everybody to stick around to the end because Dennis is going to perform one of his legendary tricks. So you won't want to miss that.